What if you could live the last 24 hours aboard the most famous ship in history? What if you could walk its grand staircases, eat in its first-class dining room, and stand on its deck before the world changed forever? In this video, we're going to reconstruct every single hour of April 14th, 1912, the last full day the Titanic was alive. And I promise you, what you're about to see will change how you think about that night forever. It is 6 o'clock in the morning on April 14th, 1912. The RMS Titanic, the largest moving object ever built by human hands, is 4 days into her maiden voyage. She left Southampton on April 10th, carrying 2,224 souls across the cold Atlantic toward New York City. And this morning, everything is perfect. The sea is unusually calm, almost unnaturally so, the kind of calm that sailors sometimes call a warning. But nobody on board is thinking about warnings this morning. In the first-class staterooms, rooms more luxurious than most European hotels, the wealthiest passengers in the world are waking up. John Jacob Astor IV, the richest man on the ship, worth the equivalent of $2 billion today, is preparing for another leisurely morning at sea. Margaret Molly Brown, the Denver socialite, is already dressed and walking the promenade deck. And Captain Edward John Smith, 62 years old, on his final voyage before retirement, is drinking his morning tea on the bridge. This is his last command. He planned to retire after this trip. Down in third class, deep in the belly of the ship, hundreds of immigrants are beginning their morning too. Irish families, Scandinavian workers, Lebanese traders, all of them dreaming of new lives in America. Their quarters are small, their meals are simple, but even third class on the Titanic was better than most ships of the era. For now, everyone is safe. Everyone is happy. The Titanic is running almost at full speed, 21 knots, and she is ahead of schedule. But at 9 a.m., something important happens that most people never talk about. The wireless room receives its first ice warning of the day. The SS Coronia sends a message. Large icebergs reported at latitude 42 degrees north, longitude 49 degrees to 51 degrees west, directly in the Titanic's path. The message is delivered to the bridge. Captain Smith reads it. He pins it to the notice board. And then, he does not slow down. By early afternoon, 5 separate ice warnings have been received. 5, the America, the Nordam, the Baltic, and most urgently, the Mesaba, which reports an enormous field of ice and large bergs directly ahead. That final message, it never makes it to the bridge. The wireless operators, Harold Bride and Jack Phillips, are overwhelmed with passenger telegrams. Wealthy first-class passengers paying to send social messages to friends in New York. The Mesaba warning gets set aside. This single moment, a message placed under a paperweight, may have sealed the fate of 1,500 people. But nobody knows this yet. At 1:30 in the afternoon, the first-class dining saloon is serving a 7-course lunch. The menus are printed on White Star Line stationery. Guests choose between oysters, filet mignon, and French pastries. Wine flows. Laughter rises above the sound of the engines below. It is, by all accounts, one of the finest meals anyone has ever eaten at sea. Meanwhile, 4 decks below, men black with coal dust are feeding 159 furnaces around the clock. The engines are thundering at nearly full capacity. The ship is pushing hard. White Star Line wanted a record crossing time. The pressure was real, and the ice is getting closer with every hour. By 5:30 p.m., the temperature has dropped sharply. Passengers who were strolling the decks an hour ago have retreated inside. The sea is still glassy, still silent. But now there's a bite to the air that wasn't there before. This is a sign, a clear sign. Ice nearby chills the air and the water around it. The lookouts in the Crow's Nest, Frederick Fleet and Reginald Lee, notice the temperature drop. They have binoculars. But here is something almost unbelievable. The binoculars assigned to the Crow's Nest have been locked in a cabinet since Southampton. The key was accidentally taken off the ship. They are watching for icebergs with nothing but their naked eyes. At 7:30 p.m., another warning comes in from the SS Californian, a ship that has actually stopped its engines because of heavy ice directly ahead. The message is handed to Captain Smith at dinner. He is dining with first-class passengers in the a la carte restaurant. He reads it, folds it, places it in his pocket, and returns to his meal. At 10 p.m., Captain Smith retires to his cabin. He gives instructions to alert him if conditions change. The sea is mirror flat. No wind, no waves. And this is the cruelest irony of that night. On a normal night, waves would break against the base of an iceberg and create white water that lookouts could spot from a distance. But tonight, the sea is so calm that there are no waves, no white water, no warning ripple. The iceberg will appear from nowhere. In the first-class smoking room, men are playing cards. The musicians in the reception room are finishing their last set. Passengers are heading to bed. Stewards are turning down sheets. It is 11:39 p.m. Frederick Fleet, high up in the Crow's Nest, peers into the darkness ahead. And then he sees it. A shape. Dark. Massive. Directly in front of the ship. He grabs the telephone and rings the bridge 3 times, the signal for an object ahead. Iceberg right ahead. First Officer Murdoch orders. Hard a starboard. Full reverse on the engines. The ship begins to turn, slowly, agonizingly slowly for a vessel this size. For 37 seconds, the Titanic fights the laws of physics. And then, a sound no one on board had ever heard before. Not a crash, not a bang. Survivors described it as a tearing, a grinding, like someone dragging a key along a metal railing. The iceberg scrapes along the starboard side for 300 feet. 6 of the 16 watertight compartments are breached. Thomas Andrews, the ship's architect, the man who built her, is woken from his cabin. He goes below with a torch. He does his calculations. He looks up at the officers standing around him and says words that no one in that room will ever forget. She can float with 4 compartments flooded. She has 6. She will sink. And then he says the part that truly breaks your heart. You have perhaps 1 hour and a half, possibly 2, not much longer. The Titanic's distress rockets begin firing at 12:45 a.m. on April 15th. The SS Californian, the ship that had stopped because of ice, is visible on the horizon. Its officers watch the rockets. They debate whether they are distress signals or company signals. They do not wake their wireless operator. They do nothing. At 2:20 a.m., the Titanic's stern rises out of the water at a near vertical angle. The lights flicker. Go out. Come back on. Then go out forever. The ship breaks in 2. Both sections sink into water that is -2 degrees Celsius, 2 degrees below freezing. 1,496 people die. Most not from drowning, but from cardiac arrest in water cold enough to kill within 15 minutes. 710 survive. When you look back at those 24 hours, from the sunshine of that April morning, to the 7-course lunches, to the ice warnings piling up on the bridge, what you see is not just a tragedy. You see a masterclass in how human confidence becomes human catastrophe. The Titanic did not sink because of one mistake. She sank because of dozens of small decisions, each one reasonable on its own, that stacked up like the watertight compartments flooding below decks. The speed, the warnings, the binoculars, the calm sea, the message under the paperweight. Remove any single one of those, and 1,496 people wake up on the morning of April 15th. The Titanic has rested on the ocean floor for over 110 years now, 2 miles down, in total darkness, slowly dissolving back into the sea. But for one day, April 14th, 1912, she was the most magnificent thing human beings had ever built. And she was alive. If this video moved you, share it with someone who loves history. And if you want to see more AI reconstructions of history's greatest moments, subscribe. Because we're just getting started.